By the time he was 8 years old, Heath was already in the Scouts, where the family's good friend, Jack Walls, had long been a volunteer.
Troop 103, that's the troop that Jack was the troop leader.
Jack was so magic. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he could sit here and talk to you, and you would just think.
Person.
I would never
in fact,
say either.
I know you. I never thought you would.
He was a wonderful person, and he was completely innocent of these horrible allegations.
And they are.
You would just think the world of him. He was a good person, good man.
And now we can try and honor his name and his legacy.
Car things.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to be one of Jack's boys.
Do so much good in the world, and they've turned it against him.
State Supreme Court judges and a federal judge.
He was voted in as the Man of the Year.
It's my privilege as president of NARM to add a fifth name to this distinguished list of recipients. Michael, you are truly deserving of this honor, as your efforts on behalf of so many causes around the world are an inspiration.
Look at this. Man of the Year award went to Charles Jack Walls III, who cited Walls for his Boy Scout work.
This is Jack Walls, the former Boy Scout troop leader, and now he is a convicted sex offender serving a life term. What we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to be looking at and comparing the Michael Jackson allegations and cases compared to this case of Jack Walls and the many boys that he abused. I think you're going to be shocked at the similarities of this case and how it really, both cases almost are like parallel cases. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a deep dive into the case of the Boy Scout leader and the allegations of Michael Jackson. This is a picture of Heath Stocks. He's one of the many victims of Jack Walls. At this point, he is a grown man. This was a picture of him as a Boy Scout. Heath Stocks' family trusted Jack Walls. He was very well respected in the community, but unfortunately, Heath Stocks could not get himself to tell his family of the abuse until really it was almost too late. And we're going to be taking a look at a video coming up here that discusses how the family and what the family thought about his Boy Scout leader, Jack Walls, and then take a look and see how it compares to how people felt about Michael Jackson. So let's take a listen.
By the time he was 8 years old, Heath was already in the Scouts, where the family's good friend, Jack Walls, had long been a volunteer.
Troop 103, that's the troop that Jack was the troop leader.
Jack was so magic. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he could sit here and talk to you, and you'd just think the world of him. You would just think the world of him. He was a good person, good man, good scout leader.
You know, Jack's from a prominent family. Everybody trusted him. When their kids got in trouble or they needed advice on how to manage them, they came to Jack.
He was the savior for Heath. He was the intervention that would help Heath become what Joe and Barbara wanted him to be. That's a push car thing.
These are the push car things.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to be one of Jack's boys.
What we watched was a short clip of what people thought of Jack Walls before his criminal activity. So before people knew that he was actually raping children. What I'm going to show right now is a short clip of Jim Clemente discussing what people thought of Michael Jackson in general. So you can also get an idea of what people were thinking of Michael Jackson and how it compares. So let's take a listen.
What I was talking about, what I'm talking about now, is not that he wasn't a wonderful person, because there are definitely people who are wonderful people who also are sexually attracted to children. And if Michael was a pedophile, he was a loving pedophile, and that's a category of offenders who literally love children. They also fall in love with children, and that's where they cross the line. And again, I think Jerry Sandusky is a perfect example of that. He did not beat these children. He did not, take out knives and guns and threaten them that way. What he did was groom them. He took his position of authority, his position of, being associated with Penn State and the football team, and used that to have kids look up to him.
This is a picture of Wade Knox. He's also a victim of Jack Walls, who is the convicted scout leader, which we're talking about in this video. Wade Knox lived right across the street from Jack Walls, and Jack Walls was his scout leader for all the way up until he was in high school. I'm going to be playing a video of Wade Knox's mother discussing Jack Walls and see if you can find some of the similarities with Michael Jackson. So let's take a listen.
We lived right across the street from Jack. It was probably 50 feet, maybe. There was always scouts over there. Always scouts, always boys, because he was interesting, he was fun.
This is a picture of a boy named Doug. Doug was also preyed upon by Jack Walls, who is the convicted scout leader who's serving a life sentence. Doug's story is rather interesting because the night of the incident, he actually went home, and his father saw that something was somewhat off and asked him. And eventually, that same night, he told his father what had happened. And they ended up confronting Jack Walls. The goal was to try to get Jack Walls to no longer be part of the Boy Scouts. And the other goal was they wanted him to be arrested. They actually went to the police and reported him. What's fascinating about his story is how it really mirrors the Michael Jackson case in relation to like Gavin Arvizo or Jordan Chandler, and even Wade Robson and James Safechuck, of them disclosing. So let's take a listen and see what Doug, who's now a grown man, has to say about that particular incident and the aftermath of reporting and going to trial and trying to get this man behind bars. So let's take a listen and see.
Doug was invited to join a campout led by Jack Walls.
Can you tell me about that day, how that went down?
So we had this campout to get to know everyone. And we went out there that night. Now I'm going to 16 and I'm going as one of the leaders, scouts. I'm going to be in charge of a group of boys. I'm going to be helping Jack with that. And that's what I was there for, is to get to know the kids that I would be going with, get to know their personalities, well, supposedly. There was no organization like a normal Boy Scouting event. He offered alcohol to me at one point, wine. He did this several times that night, and he started telling boys to go to bed that night. And that struck me as odd.
You're saying he had a plan?
Yeah. And another boy picked up on it. He excused himself and said he was going to bed, which left me at the campfire with Jack. And Jack started the conversation off with who I was dating, how far we'd gone, what we'd done. But then it started taking a different tone of, well, do you want to do this? I could help you with this. Or who are you thinking about tonight? And he said, lay down, take a load off, And he came and laid down with his feet at my head and kept the conversation going, but kept it in a sexual tone. It bothered me. But when he put his hands on me, he reached for my belt and started trying to unbuckle my pants. And I just told him no. I said, I'm not into that. It's not my thing. And he tried to play it off for a few seconds, and I don't remember exactly what he said. But he was brazen enough to say, well, how about you do me? And I said no. And I got up and I left. I went to the truck and I told my friend that was with me, and he didn't seem shocked at all. I got home and my dad noticed my attitude and my demeanor and asked me to sit down and talk to him. So I sat down and he said, what's going on? And I said, I can't tell you. And he said, why? And I said, I will tell you if you'll make me a promise. And he said, what's that? And I said, you have to promise me that you won't do anything to go to jail. He said, just tell me. I said, I can't do it without your word. I need you to promise me you won't do anything to go to jail. He said, okay, you have my word. And I told him what happened. My dad said, I'm glad you made me make that promise, because otherwise I would have reacted.
And then what did your dad do?
He called Jack up. He told Jack in a very colorful way that he would step down from Boy Scouts. He would resign and not have anything to do with Boy Scouts ever again. And that if he did this, he wouldn't press charges.
Your dad reports him to the Boy Scouts, and he's put on the list. But then, that's not enough. He decides to press charges.
So my dad went to the chief of police. We wanted a public admission of guilt. It was never about the money.
After that, Jack Walls was charged with delinquency of a minor and assault. He was put on trial in 1994. This meant the Hogans would be going up against far more than just one man.
My attorney warned me that oftentimes in these type of cases that the victim is put on trial, that their character and integrity and things from their past are brought in to explain that they're not honest, that they're the bad person. And the victim is blamed for what happens instead of the perpetrator who actually did something wrong. I had people leave notes in my locker at school that knew nothing about Boy Scouts and what had gone on, that called me fag, homo, queerbait. I mean, these are boys that had nothing to do with Boy Scouts. But the stigma of what had happened, it was, at the time, abusive, but it was gay bashing. I was queerbait.
You know as well as I do, from practical experience, a 13-year-old will lie much more than a 5-year-old.
Well, it depends on the situation.
In fact, 11, 12, 13, they can lie repeatedly.
They can, but very rarely do they lie about being sexually victimized by a man. A male victim who is victimized by a man is much less likely to say that in public or any other circumstance. You know, you've seen the John Jay study in the Catholic Church cases. I mean, the average time it took adults to come forward was 20 years, and 25% of them didn't come forward till 30 years later. It's a very, very difficult thing.
And they picked on me about it, but they never directly did it to my face. It was always behind my back or in subtle ways, leaving notes or things.
What picture did they paint of him on the stand?
He was a good, honest man from Lone Oak that went to church and was a good leader, and they couldn't see him ever participating in something that I was accusing him of. And I was the one that was perverted, dirty, and creating this situation so that my family could sue his family.
And in that case, who prevails?
In the criminal case? Mm-hmm. Jack did. He was acquitted of all charges.
For lawyer Tom Mesereau, the latest allegations are the claims of opportunists out to make a buck.
I can't get over it. I mean, I just don't put any credibility in any of this. I just don't.
Justice was done. The man's innocent, he always was.
In 2005, he helped clear Jackson of child molestation charges and defends the singer to this day.
I am 100% convinced Michael never abused a child, never harmed a child, certainly never molested a child. I think this is hogwash.
Did it actually go into court 2 different times? Or did it only go for the criminal civil?
No, it was settled out of court in civil. Boy Scouts couldn't have it go to trial. And for legal reasons, I am limited as to what I can say about the civil case.
Why are you limited?
Because I signed a non-disclosure agreement at 16 years old.
With who?
The Boy Scouts of America and Jack Wall.
Just cast your mind back. What was that like when you first heard the allegations that were being made against you?
It was shocking, and I'm not allowed to talk about this by way of law.
Jack Walls lost his registration with the Boy Scouts of America shortly after Doug's father reported him to the local Scout Council. Their file on Walls makes it clear why. It lists the details of Doug's allegations.
The Boy Scouts became responsible the minute they knew what and who Jack was.
The company itself, because the company is what he used to facilitate his sexual abuse. The company is what employed all the people who surrounded him, who bought the plane tickets for the kids, who put the kids in the same hotel room as Michael Jackson, who separated the parents by sending them on trips, by putting them on different hotel room floors.
We didn't hear anything about the Scouts not approving of Jack anymore. We didn't know anything about that. The only side we heard was Jack's.
How did he continue to lead scouting events after he lost that registration?
He shouldn't have been involved in scouting at all.
And they were okay with hanging Jack out to dry, but they had to protect him at the same time, because to completely expose him or let him be exposed would mean they would have to admit that he was doing this within their organization, and they just couldn't allow that. It was all about image, marketing.
Draw a line between the kind of image that Michael portrayed of himself as this sort of childlike, a child in a man's body, and what was actually happening behind closed doors. This is something that this was an image that Michael worked very hard to establish in the mind of the public. And it was a pretense that he, went to great lengths to maintain.
We're safe, we're good, we're wholesome, nothing to see here. They wanted to keep their brand. It wasn't about safety, the safety of children. It was about keeping a clean reputation and image for their organization so that more boys would come. I think that case just left me disappointed that there was no justice in the world. That regardless of how much truth I told and how much I tried to expose Jack for who he really was, people are manipulative, and it's a manipulative system.
Do you talk to the boy? What was his reaction?
He was very discouraged. He was, as you would expect, a young 15-year-old boy who everybody in the world now knows the jury didn't believe what he said, was very discouraged. He couldn't understand it and was down.
And I didn't realize the system that I was fighting. I was fighting a prominent family. I'm fighting an entire national organization. They're gonna make sure they've got a really solid story before they walk into that courtroom. Where all I had to give was the truth as a 16-year-old kid.
I want to be able to speak the truth as loud as I had to speak the lie for so long.
So in the beginning of this video, I introduced you to two of the victims of Jack Walls, the convicted scout leader. On the left was Heath Sachs, and on the right is Wade Knox. I'm going to be showing a clip discussing something, again, another similarity between the Michael Jackson allegations and what happened with these two victims. The other thing we're going to look at afterwards is what happened to these two victims and where are they now.
We as a family went to court to testify with Jack. And I was on the witness stand and I said, this just can't be. It cannot be. There were politicians there. His dad had brought all the state politicians in, you know, and of course, that little boy, it was proven that Jack came out looking like a saint that day. And we just couldn't believe that that child would say something like that. We just couldn't believe it.
Several of Jack's scouts also supported him during the trial.
My dad told me, he said, you tell them what Jack tells you to say, that I've never seen Jack do anything to anybody.
My attorney warned me that oftentimes in these type of cases that the victim is put on trial, that their character and integrity and things from their past are brought in to explain that they're not honest, that they're the bad person.
Cross-examination of these accusers in Michael Jackson's criminal trial, you would 100% agree with me. This guy was innocent. These accusers were absolutely ridiculous. They told so many different stories on so many different occasions.
But none of that is inconsistent with victimization.
They went to lawyers before they went to the police. There were so many problems with their motives.
All right.
Well, no, their mother was with them most of the time.
I get that.
Their father was with them
they
most
weren't
of the
the
time.
ones, right? They weren't the ones that decided to go to a lawyer versus a prosecutor.
And they had made
or a cop.
allegations about each other on other occasions. The kids had accused the father. One kid had accused the mother. This was a family that, in my opinion, based on the information I got and which I used in cross-examining them, were very, very facile and free with allegations of abuse.
A series of character traits said to define the good scout. Among them, trustworthiness, loyalty, obedience.
So what happened to the first victim we discussed in this video, Heath Stocks? Let's take a look.
County Courthouse.
Jack Walls was sentenced to life in prison on 6 counts of raping a minor, including Wade Knox and Heath Stocks, who was brought to Lone Oak for the verdict.
I was glad that they put him away for the rest of his life, so we won't have a chance to do this to another child.
Despite losing his registration with the Boy Scouts of America, Jack Walls went to Philmont in 1993, something he later admitted to under questioning. He signed in as Heath Stocks' father, Joe.
My brother lets him go to Philmont on his name. He'll let Jack take his place because, you know, Jack must have been doing good things for those boys. You know, I'm going to support Jack.
And he wasn't even supposed to be there, Jack Walls. But he continued doing the same things right here that he had been doing and never stopped. He just did it under another name.
But at his sentencing, the judge told Jack Walls that Heath Stocks was his finest creation and that he became what he taught him to be. In the very least, he said, Jack Walls is indirectly responsible for the deaths of Joe, Barbara, and Heather Stocks.
I interviewed Heath on all the sexual abuse that was going on. This is some important information when you're sentencing somebody for 3 counts of murder and wondering what happened. It never got out. Who stands to lose the most? Jack Walls stands to lose the most, not Heath.
And I have no doubt that Jack forced Heath through manipulation to kill his parents or else. Whether Jack was physically present in the room, I do not know. That's between Jack, Heath, and God. But he was definitely in control of the situation.
Every scout we talked to said, Jack said, if you can't fix it, you kill it. So his motive was, to teach them to kill for him. Hearing 50 stories about what Jack did to them or they saw Jack do to other people was reliable enough information to know that he was a rapist and a killer.
So Heath Stocks was so traumatized about what happened to him, and he was so conditioned by Jack Walls, the scout leader, that when he finally told some members of his family, he felt guilty and went back to his abuser, Jack Walls, and let him know what he did. And Jack Walls convinced him that the only way out of this was to go back and to kill his family, that they now knew, and there was no other way out. And eventually that's exactly what he did. And what it shows is, again, the manipulation and the control that these abusers can have on their victims. So the next question we have to answer is, what happened to Wade Knox after the abuse? So let's find out.
It was in the months after the Stocks family murders that Jack's abuse of the boys of Lone Oak started to come out.
Wade's senior year, he fell completely apart. I mean, he absolutely fell completely apart. I saw pain, a lot of pain in Wade's eyes, a lot of pain. But when you don't know what you're fighting, you don't know how to handle it.
For years, Karen had wondered why her son Wade was so troubled.
It was just constant turmoil till I did not know what was going on. I knew there was so much evil somewhere, but I could not figure out where it was coming from.
She finally found out just before he started his senior year of high school.
He took a gun out of our safe and brought Jack to us at gunpoint. He still had the gun to wet Jack's head, and he said, now you tell my mom and my dad what you've done to me all of my life. And Jack said, it's all true. I looked at that man, and Josh, I didn't even know him. He looked like evil. He was sweating profusely. He didn't even look human to me anymore.
That was the day Karen found out Jack Walls had been abusing her son.
You know, when you find out what's been wrong with your child for the last 13 years in one split second, that's pretty powerful. After it was all over with, he said, y'all were supposed to die that day. And he said, I couldn't do it. He was supposed to kill all of us because we were putting things together.
Later, Wade would tell his mother details of what Jack Walls had put him through over the years.
He looked at me one day and he was so serious and he was so hurt. He said, did you and Daddy give Jack permission to rape me and perform all that stuff on me? And I said, oh my God, no. No. He said, Jack said you knew all about it and it was fine with y'all.
And what happened to Wade?
My daughter had a baby, and it was my spring break. It was in March. And she wanted us to come up and keep the baby one day for her. So we did. And Wade said, don't worry about it. He was good then. And he said, don't worry about me. I will be okay. Well, Brooke, our oldest son, was supposed to check in with him, which he did. And Charlie's mother was supposed to check in with him, which she did. But one afternoon, Brooke called us and said, Mama Wade's dead. He shot himself. Right before he died, he said, Mom, we have got to make something good come out of this. He said, we've got to write a book, we've got to go to the schools and tell them about people like Jack. And he never lived to do it.
We're looking for financial.
Well, what it's about was I was trying to figure out, a desire started arising in me once I was, I don't know, maybe about 9 months or so into my healing process after disclosing. Well, the question was, what could I do something good with this bad? You know, with this horrible thing that happened to me? What could I do that could maybe turn it into something good? Is there a way, is there a platform, is there a place where I can tell this story that would be a credible, powerful platform to tell it within, you know, where they would have to listen, right?
They who?
They, the estate.
The estate,
yeah. That they would have to be held accountable. You know, I could have, I guess, just gone on some TV shows and done some interviews, and more than likely it would have been sensationalized and over in a couple of weeks. So for me, that's where it began, is what, you know,
but
that's one of the platforms we have, is the legal system.
Okay.
This is where we bring this sort of
So did you
stuff.
think that you were owed money, that you should have some money?
It wasn't a thought of mine. It isn't a thought of mine. It's just that that's the system, the legal system is the place where, in what other scenario was the estate, was Michael's companies going to have to listen, going to have to sit there? And also a big piece for me was Michael trained me and forced me to tell the lie for so many years, and particularly on the stand. And those were really traumatizing experiences for me that had a huge impact on the rest of my life. So the feeling was, I want an opportunity to reprocess that experience. I want to get on the stand again, because now I'm able to tell the truth.
That's what you want.
So what are my feelings on this particular episode? For myself, this goes way back to the beginning. Over a decade ago, Wade Robson's story resonated with me, and you know, the fact that he was not being believed and he was getting vitriol for just telling the truth, I could relate to. And then eventually I actually looked further into the allegations against Michael Jackson, and then other cases as well. And I realized that it's so important when people come forward and want to tell the truth that we listen and that we don't shut them down. You know, the other part of this episode that I feel is truly heartbreaking is the fact that many victims don't make it out. In some cases, they'll commit suicide, like we saw with Wade Knox, or they'll end up in jail, or they'll end up using drugs, or just have lives that are very, very difficult to live. And when we do see men like Wade Robson and James Safechuck come through and begin to heal, it's important that we support them. You know, after doing this over 10 years, I have seen all the vitriol in their way. I don't care what Taj Jackson thinks. I don't care what Tom Mesereau thinks. I don't care what Brandy Jackson thinks. I don't care what the fans think, because they don't understand what it means. What it means to actually look that sort of predatory behavior in the face and have to realize what it entails to come forward. And the people that have had that happen and still don't understand it, maybe really need to look down deep inside and begin to recalibrate their thought process. I really feel that what we saw here is such a prime example of how people don't get believed, or they don't have the capability of speaking the truth. And what was funny about this particular episode is when there was that one boy that came forward, Doug, and he came forward almost immediately, he was shut down. So when someone comes forward immediately and they're shut down, what do you think they're going to deal with when they have to come forward 20 or 30 years later, which is typically what happens? So those are my thoughts on this particular episode. My thoughts are with the families that were featured in this particular episode, for the Knox family and the Stacks family and all the other victims of the convicted scout leader, Jack Walls. I think it's important to show these cases and to actually compare and contrast as well. So this is going to be the end for this particular episode of Nocturnal Admissions, Episode 2, which is what I'm calling Michael Jackson and the Boy Scout Parallel Lines. So I would like to thank you for watching our very, 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 very small channel here, Surviving Michael Jackson. And a little housekeeping. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. And get involved. So that involves literally just letting people know about our channel. We are a new channel and we definitely need subscribers. And by sharing these videos and letting other people know that this channel is here, it definitely does help. Also, please comment on the videos. It does help the algorithm. And as always, I hope that you have a wonderful evening, and wishing you all the best from our channel, Surviving Michael Jackson.
In the zone, we in the zone. My whole team in the zone, we in the zone. In the zone, we in the zone. My whole team in the zone. I'm in my zone. Zone. We zoning out, I'm in my zone.